once again. This is my Ninja Gaiden 3 Ultimate Ninja difficulty video walkthrough. We are on the second part to day 7, and I'm going crazy with the bow because back on this game it had a fantastic auto aim, which it doesn't really have on Razor's Edge because they've nerfed it to hell. They made the best ability it has, which is I think it's the lock-on slow motion attack. They turned it into a Nimpo required technique and kind of killed everything I liked about the bow, which is really saying something because there's not much on this game I do really like, and the bow was kind of one of them because you could do a lot of damage with it. There's bosses that you can cheese with it, there's scenarios you can fuck up with it. A lot of good stuff comes from that bow. But for the last 2 videos I've been having an interesting little discussion about some of the things I don't really understand, and this topic has been centered around religion. We've moved on to the Bible. Nothing too deep, nothing too, sacrilegious. Just a couple of inconsistencies and silly bits of hypocrisy. There's no judgment here. There's no proselytizing. There's no renouncing of faith. There's no iconoclasm going. I'm not just telling you to destroy your images. I'm not telling you to do any of that good fun stuff. There's no zealousness to my actions. I'm just a discussion. Nothing stronger than that. But I was moving on to this notion of being sat down with the Bible and having it read to you to make you a better person, which is a belief that a lot of people have, including my grandma, who is a fantastic woman, but she has a virus of faith, which is one way of putting it. And I know it's a negative way of putting it, but please bear with me, guys. I'm being hyperbolic and I'm trying to have some fun with this topic. This can be a very serious and sour kind of thing to talk about, and I don't want it to be that. I want there to be some silliness, some jovialness to it, and that's why I generally stay away from this topic on the channel, because not a lot of people can see religion in that light. It's an all or nothing kind of thing. You either have utmost devout respect or you try to destroy it with vicious, venomous hate. Which hate is a funny thing because hate's a negative term. We've coined a connotation to hate for it to be a negative thing. It's not an objective dislike or a belief that something is bad. It's literally hate. Such an angry word. But let's get back on topic. I was thinking the other day, along this tangent's lines, of gang rape, which, if you've just joined this video at this part and you've not been listening, you probably think I'm quite sick in the mind. I wasn't thinking about gang rape, just like, when all of a sudden, gang rape. No, I was thinking of it in literature. And I'm not the most cultured person when it comes to reading stuff. A lot of the more culturally significant things I've read happen to have happened at school. It's been a long time since I've been at school, and a lot of my reading is generally fiction. And, not to diminutize the value of said fiction, but a lot of people, if you're not reading classics or Shakespeare, they kind of look down on you, which, fuck those people. So I've not really read too much literature with gang rape in it. I was trying to think of a book on the bestsellers list that has a predisposition towards gang rape. You might be thinking, well, where the hell has this come from? What's with the gang rape topic? I'm getting there, guys. Give me a chance. And I can't think of one. The only one I can think of is probably I don't know the name of the trilogy, but The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is kind of rapey. There is a guy who takes advantage of the main character, the hacker lady, the private investigator. She has a rape scene. She's getting abused by a guy who's exploiting her. Kind of rapey. I assume the book is much more rapey than the film, because that's what you've got to do with literature. It's always worse when it's written down. So I believe that was a bestseller because it's apparently a very good book. So the only book I could think of, except for one, was those. And there may be other great examples of such a horrific act that take place in it. But none feature gang rape so much or so frequently as the Bible does. Which I think is quite stunning, and that's not boo-hoo, there's not enough gang rape happening in my literature. That is, did anybody honestly think, because a lot of people are very ignorant of the Bible and of its stories, that such a profoundly, a book that is viewed as being profoundly good and moral features pretty much the biggest example of gang rape ever featured in literature. There may be another book that has much more, but I don't know it, so I can't use it. But yeah, if you've never read any books in the Bible, there is some awesome, preclusions towards unconsensual gang love. And it just blows me away, man. Like, I bet you weren't told that in religion, were you? In religious studies, or whichever RE class you have. I was never told that. If I'd have been told that, I might have paid more attention. Because that is weird. That is something that I would like to understand more about. And it's not because I'm a rapist. It's because, how the fuck does that make it into the moral handbook? Like, how does that work? And I'm glad it's in there, because it's almost more human at that point. But I was looking into some of the stories, and almost none of them are good. None of them. Like, I was reading about Sodom and Gomorrah, which, quite a famous tale of, cities indulgent in sin that got cleansed by God because of all the sin that was going on. But before this happened, God sent a messenger. I believe his name was Lot. Don't quote me on that, I might have mixed up a character. There's quite a lot of them in this book. Quite a cast. And they warned Lot, that shit was going to kick off. You might want to get out of there. And Lot had two daughters. That's as much detail as I'm going to go into, because I'll probably paraphrase and get this wrong, because I don't have anything in front of me, guys. I'm just remembering something I've read from the good book. Notice the good part of that sentence. And there were angels that were sent to give him this warning, to transfer the word of God, which that's the point of angels. If you didn't know, they were carriers of the message of God. They were also his right hand. They were the way he influenced our world without using his almighty biceps. And I thought this was great, because what happened was, outside of Lot's house where these angels were there, these emissaries of God's voice, the occupants, the denizens of Sodom, the sodomites, you might call them, came over to the house in quite the mob and demanded that Lot release the guests to the crowd. And you're thinking, that's kind of weird, kind of, xenophobic, nice bit of ostracism happening here, nice mob mentality, kind of Frankenstein-esque, bunch of guys with torches, like, release the strangers into our midst. And the way that the language is used, it's inferred that the Sodomites wanted the angels out of the house so that they could rape them. And not only rape them, guys, sodomize them, which is glorious. Because you might not know this, and if you're young, you shouldn't be listening to this, because this is an adult tangent. But sodomy is the sexual interaction with the anus, otherwise known in the porn world as anal. So there, you've just learnt something horrific, and don't blame me, society's fault. So they wanted to bum them, which is glorious, because is there anything more human than the very first first contact, first experience with this celestial being, these angels, these vessels of purity, and the first response from the emissary of man is, let's fuck it! I think that's great, I think that's genius, and I think that's the best part of the story, minus the rapey inclination. But Lot didn't want the angels to go out to the mob, for obvious reasons, even though, in popular fiction, and I use fiction wisely, angels don't have genitalia. And if they don't have genitalia, one must think that they probably don't have, waist orifices, because they shouldn't need them. So what hole the sodomites would have sodomized is beyond me, but we'll leave that there. But Lot didn't want these messengers of God to be damaged, so quite valiantly, against a big mob mentality in his town, he refused to let them come out. But then he goes and turns the tale really dark and weird, because this part doesn't make sense. This is where it stops being a story and quite, you know, fun, crazy, and it contradicts human nature and logic, but probably makes quite a lot of sense if you believe, which a pretty interesting definition of belief is, you know, faith is belief without evidence, which is a pretty powerful statement, and, you know, a lot of people might think it true, a lot of people might not. But instead of letting these angels go out to get gangbanged, even though how they would have gangbanged them makes no sense, because to my count they only had one hole worth using, and you can't exactly gangbang one hole, and I've seen people try. But instead, he sent his daughters out. His 2 young daughters, his 2 young virgin daughters. And I'm not going to paraphrase because I don't know the passage, but the passage itself reads just horrifically. Because he essentially says, do what you want with my 2 daughters, my flesh and blood, my children, but don't hurt these allegorical fairies who, if divine themselves, like, probably wouldn't have even felt the gang rape. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any, like, biological sense. And this is not a religious point here. I mean, obviously it is, because it's in a religious text, and the only way that this makes any sense is the just complete conviction of someone religious. That's the only way this makes sense. To have such fervent conviction that you would willingly do this. It just goes against every, you know, survival impulse, every protective, you know, paternal instinct in your body. And I'm not even a father, but I can still get that. Like, who the fuck would ever want to give their daughter away to that? It doesn't make any sense. It's where the story just goes into cloud fucking cuckoo land. And lo and behold, his daughters go out and they are savagely gangbanged all night. It even stresses all night until dawn. Like, now this is the book my grandma wanted to read me? Like, is this the part she wanted to read? Horny mare. Like, what the fuck is this? And this is the part they don't teach, guys, because this is, you know, so eccentric and so ridiculous that they say, oh no, this is symbolic. This is, you know, always put faith first in front of your family as opposed to the other way around, because God is great and mighty and deserves the utmost respect and should come first. You know, this is symbolic. This is taken as an interpretation. Then how is it any more literal than the 10 Commandments, even though people abide those and live their life by the rulings, when it's the same caliber of story? Puts us to a fantastic tangent as well. Moses. Iconic in the Bible, you know. I learnt all about Moses when I was younger, because I went to 2 Catholic schools I went to. I learnt all about the dude. Big beard, you know. Looked a bit like a BG. And they always said, you know, all the good deeds that he did, you know, came down from, I always fuck it up, I want to say Mount Sinai, but I might be wrong. Once again, guys, it's been a long time since I looked back and read these things. But he went up to a mountain to get the 2 tablets, which were, you know, prescribed from God and all the rules and all that kind of stuff. And then he dropped them, but it's cool because he got a 2nd pair. Like, Moses did a lot of stuff. You know, Moses did some pretty epic stuff. But they only tell you about the epic stuff. You know, they're like Call of Duty commentators. They only show you the 90-1 games. They don't show you the 2 and 10s. Like, Moses had a lot of 2 and 10s. He had a lot of really bad ideas and bad things. And even as close as the 10 Commandments. He was just given 2 tablets filled with awesomeness, which are essentially, you know, abide by these and you get to go to heaven and you get to play a harp on a cloud and live forever and, you know, meet Freddie Mercury again and all that good stuff. I don't even know what it gives you. It gives you something great that I don't understand. But what happened is when he came down from the mountain, because, you know, people, humans, tribes, whatever you want to say, have such this, you know, almost a genetic predisposition towards gods and belief, that instead of, you know, having conviction in the one God and in Moses to go and do what he said he was going to do, because it took him a little while to come back down the mountain, they decided to worship a completely different God. In fact, they created a God to worship and to try and sacrifice to, in hopes of, you know, not going the same way that Moses went, which leads us on to a most interesting story, which I'm going to cover in the next video. So thank you for watching Biblical Story Time with Sarah from 17, and you take care now.